Yes, my friends, the Philadelphia Eagles just shook up the entire NFL with one of the boldest moves in recent history. The atmosphere is heated behind the scenes, and coach Nick Sirianni is anxious for the new season to start. Our GM Howie has his radar on to increase the Eagles' firepower. Many fans are confident that the Eagles will also win the next Super Bowl. Man, can I give you my opinion? I really believe it. We have a great roster. If you believe it too, hit the like button hard. And if possible, comment like this: "We trust Howie. Let's go to the Super Bowl again." Now, we need to talk about this guy, Saquon Barkley. Already a star in the league, he is now the highest paid running back of all time, thanks to a huge 2-year contract, $41.2 million, with $36 million guaranteed. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because this deal is not just about Barkley. It's about a much larger strategy that should have the entire league on its toes. Think about it. The Eagles aren't just making a statement with their wallets. They're sending a message to every free agent in the NFL. If you do well in Philadelphia, you get paid, and that's a game changer. While other teams balk, while running backs have been undervalued across the league, the Eagles are flipping the script. This isn't just about rewarding Barkley. It's about making Philadelphia the best destination for free agents. And if you're wondering if this was an overpayment, think again. The Eagles didn't just sign a star player. They manipulated the cap in a way that only Howie Roseman could. The cap hit is structured to keep Philadelphia's spending flexible while Barkley gets his money up front. Meanwhile, other teams are scrambling to figure out how the Eagles keep doing this. The Cincinnati Bengals are out here wondering how the Birds are making all these deals when they can't even keep their star players together. But that's how Philadelphia operates. Oh, and speaking of financial wizardry, this move was made possible in part because Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie recently cashed in on a stake in the team, freeing up massive liquid capital. Translation? The Eagles can guarantee big money deals without worrying about the cap. And with the salary cap expected to explode by 2028, this deal looks even smarter in the long run. Now, this is where things get even more interesting. With Barkley locked in, Philly is freeing up cap space and making room for even more moves. James Bradberry was released, and Lane Johnson could be next in line for a restructured contract to open up even more cap flexibility. And let's not forget some of the names floating around in the rumor mill: Zach Bond, Mekhi Becton, and even Isaiah Rodgers. And here's a wild card for you. What if the Eagles pull off something even bigger and make a run at a superstar like Myles Garrett? Before you call it crazy, just know that the odds of a Garrett trade happening are already climbing. But let's talk about the real elephant in the room: A.J. Brown. Rumors have been swirling that the Patriots have been making calls about the superstar wide receiver. Let's be clear, Philly isn't listening. A.J. Brown isn't going anywhere. This is just another example of teams around the league throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks. Brown has said over and over again that he wants to be in Philly. And honestly, why would the Eagles even consider trading away one of their best weapons when they're in the middle of building a dynasty? Now, let's shift gears to the defense. The Eagles have been making some tough decisions, and the latest was cutting ties with James Bradberry. Say what you will about his production last year, but he was a veteran presence. That said, this move signals a major shift. Philly is revamping the leadership of this defense, and they're doing it with a young, hungry group that might just be the scariest in the league. And here's the part that should make the rest of the NFL nervous. The Eagles already had the number one defense in the league last season. Now they're making strategic changes to get even better. Some might be worried about potentially losing Darius Slay, but the reality is, the Eagles are playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. They've got plans for the secondary, whether it's keeping guys like Kaylee Ringo, bringing in Isaiah Rodgers, or even making a move in the draft.
And don't even get me started on the defensive line. Milton Williams and Josh Sweat might not be back, which would hurt, but Philly has a knack for finding talent in the trenches. The Dallas Cowboys just handed Osa Odigizua a massive $80 million deal, which means Williams is probably getting something similar. If the Eagles don't match that, they'll have other options. And let's be honest, HOWIE roseman isn't about to let the defensive line fall apart. So, where do we go from here? There's a real possibility that the Eagles are looking to lock up more key pieces before free agency kicks into high gear. Cam Jurgens is one to watch. If they get an extension done there, it frees up even more cap space. And what about Jalen Hurts? Could the Eagles actually extend him early to free up more money in the short term? It might sound wild, but with Philly, nothing is off the table. Oh, and one more thing, Dallas Goedert. He's heading into the final year of of his contract. Do the Eagles extend him to lower his cap hit, or do they consider moving him and getting younger at tight end? This is the kind of forward thinking that has Philly in position to dominate for years. The bottom line, the Eagles aren't just trying to win a Super Bowl, they're trying to build a dynasty. Every move they're making is designed to keep them competitive not just for a year or two, but for the next half-decade. But now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Barkley deal? What's the next big move you expect from Philly? And if you had to pick one player to target in free agency or the draft, who would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you think the Eagles are done making moves, think again. Because if there's one thing we know about Howie Roseman, it's that he's always 3 steps ahead. Everything Philly is doing right now is about setting themselves up to dominate not just next season, but for years to come. Let's circle back to the biggest takeaway from the Barkley deal. This isn't just about paying a superstar, it's about leveraging the market in a way that gives the Eagles a massive advantage. While the rest of the league was devaluing running backs, Philly swooped in and secured the best one available. And not just that, they did it in a way that keeps their cap flexible and sends a clear message to every other player in the NFL. Philly takes care of its own. And that message is going to pay dividends when free agency officially kicks off. Every top-tier player looking for a new home just saw what happened with Barkley. They saw how quickly the Eagles locked him up, how much money they put on the table, and how smoothly they structured the contract to keep the team competitive. That kind of reputation changes everything when you're trying to build a powerhouse. Now, let's talk about some of the moves still on the table. First up, what happens at cornerback? We already know James Bradbury is gone, and there are still question marks surrounding Darius Slay. If Slay is out, then the Eagles need a serious plan at corner, especially with how their secondary struggled at times last season. That's where a guy like Isaiah Rodgers could come into play. He's a name that keeps coming up in conversations, and it wouldn't be surprising at all if Howie pulls the trigger on a deal there. But the bigger wild card? The draft. If the Eagles decide to use one of their early picks on a shutdown corner, that could be their long-term answer. And if history has taught us anything, it's that Philly always finds a way to get value in the draft. And speaking of value, let's talk about the defensive line. With the uncertainty surrounding Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, the Eagles are going to have to be aggressive in either free agency or the draft to keep their front four dominant. Losing Williams would sting, no doubt, but the Eagles have proven time and time again that they can reload in the trenches without skipping a beat. One name to keep an eye on? Myles Garrett. Now, before you call that crazy, just consider the situation. The Browns are in a tight cap spot, and if they can't make a deal work, they might be forced to move him. The chances of a Garrett trade to Philly have already jumped from 10% to 30%, and if things keep trending this way, that number could climb even higher. So, what's next? That's the big question. With free agency right around the corner and the draft coming up, you can bet that Howie still has a few tricks up his sleeve. The Eagles aren't done making moves, and when the next big signing or trade happens, you already know this front office will have played it to perfection. But now, I want to hear from you. What do you think the next move should be? Should the Eagles push for a superstar like Myles Garrett? Should they go all in on shoring up the secondary? Or is there a wild card move that nobody is talking about? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's get the conversation going.